The pandemic has caused an unprecedented worldwide economic shutdown, which has put an enormous amount of stress on global food supplies. And as the coronavirus continues to spread around the world, the United Nations is warning about global food shortages soon. The world is going to change dramatically and permanently. UN officials also predict soaring food prices as lockdowns in various countries slow down supply chains, and as some countries implement export restrictions to prevent domestic food shortages. Restrictions on movement have meant farmworkers are in short supply, and food is at risk of rotting in the fields. Fruit and vegetable farms in America rely on cheap foreign labor to harvest their crops. Restrictions on movement have meant farmworkers are in short supply, and food is at risk of rotting in the fields. Restrictions on movement across the world have meant vital farmworkers are in short supply, and now food is at risk of rotting in the fields. Meat prices are extremely high. Food hyperinflation has definitely kicked in. The price of steaks and chicken is through the roof. Now is the time to restock in prepping for the second wave. Don't worry about what others think of you. Here in America, stores still have plenty of food. But empty shelves have started to appear, and we are seeing spikes in food cost, especially meat. Meat processing facilities have been shut down all over America due to coronavirus, and this is starting to create some really annoying shortages. There is definitely a meat shortage. A lot of farmers may have to go out of business after being financially ruined during this crisis, and we will seriously miss that lost production capacity in the days ahead. The global food supplies are only going to get tighter and tighter. Now is the time to restock in preparation for the second wave. You are indeed on the verge of being too late. Food prices are skyrocketing. Those of you who turn your nose up at canned meat better rethink that quickly. For it is already getting difficult to find it for the third year in a row. Torrential rains have returned to many crop-growing areas. So do not expect any relief from a bountiful harvest. The old standby of rice and beans will not work either, with the rice shortage in many areas, whether the food is unavailable or too expensive. The result is the same. Get essential while you can, and not just food. The benefits of being a hunter-fisherman and having a garden become more evident. You need to become more self-sufficient people. Food shortages are looming, and the cost of food is going to rise even faster than it has been doing. And it isn't because of global warming or whatever other lies they tell you. It is, however, partly a side effect of the coronavirus. All around the world, food is in short supply. In rich Western countries, starvation is not an imminent threat. But what we are seeing is an explosion of hunger that is absolutely unprecedented. All over America, people have been lining up for hours at America's food banks so that they can be sure to get something before the supplies run out. The biggest food shortage will be in third world countries. The price of the world's most important staple food, rice, has risen by 70% in just a few months. Food prices in the United States have seen a historic jump and are destined to stay high and to go higher. There has been a lot of empty shelves at the grocery stores for weeks now, not only the canned goods and freezer aisles but also the fresh meats. Absolutely forget about trying to pick up some disinfectant and toilet paper. Countries which have good food production are halting their exports. Vietnam, for example, has stopped exporting rice because they need their food supplies at home, and you can't blame them. All countries, all villages, all homes would do much the same. Processing plants and distribution centers all around the world have been severely disrupted by the coronavirus shutdowns. If one works on a farm or in a warehouse, for example, and shows coronavirus-like symptoms, then the authorities often close down that farm or the warehouse. Huge crops of vegetables and fruit are being plowed into the ground, and tankers full of milk are being poured away. Millions of animals are being slaughtered and then buried or burnt because the supply chains have been shut down. America almost unbelievably is now importing beef because of the shortages there. Thousands of farmers can't get their crops picked. Fruit, in particular, is likely to rot in the fields. Controls on transport have meant that it's been difficult to move food from where it is to where there's a dearth. The unsurprising consequence of all this is that there's going to be a massive shortage of fruit and vegetables, and so prices are going to rocket. The shortage is global, not local. All around the world, there are shortages of almost all foods. And other factors are going to ensure that the shortage gets worse. Rice and beans for a while won't do you too much damage. If and when the economy is allowed to stutter into action again, the price of oil will doubtless eventually rise because the existing supplies are diminishing rapidly, and most oil companies have pretty well given up exploration. The rising price of oil will mean that farming and transportation costs will rise, and that will also push up the price of food. There are several other explanations for what's already happened and for what's going to turn this into a perfect storm of food shortage. The other problem is locusts. Plagues of them have been traveling from Arabia into Africa. A plague of locusts can, in just a couple of days, eat their way through as much food as would keep the whole population of California going for a day. A swarm can lay 1,000 eggs per square yard of land. And you can imagine what all those locusts are going to do to the world's food supplies. There are swarms of locusts wandering across Africa. And each swarm can cover 20 square miles. All the locusts do is breed and eat. When they land on a tree, the combined weight will bring down large branches. Inevitably, the health crisis that has been gripping the world has disrupted supplies of the chemicals for spraying. And the swarms of locusts are getting bigger and threatening food supplies in Africa, Arabia, and Asia. A swarm of locusts can strip 100 acres in minutes. The economies of those countries affected are going to be destroyed. Welcome back to the Atlantis Report. You are here for your daily dose of the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Food will be scarce, and what there is will be unaffordable locally. The food shortages which are going to come will be biblical. Farms and warehouses and distribution centers can be closed down apparently legitimately when one worker tests positive for the coronavirus or develops a mild symptom or two. The advice here will help my viewers is, do a little food stockpiling now so that you and your family will have a better chance to be strong and healthy. It isn't selfish, it's survival. If you have a garden and can grow favorite vegetables or fruit, that's probably a good idea. Get off the couch, get the garden tilled. Kale, cucumbers, tomatoes, potatoes, spaghetti squash, acorn squash, strawberries, bell peppers. At the beginning of the year, my guidance told me the greatest investments at this time are good soil, seeds, and clean water and air. Also, learning to forage and how to preserve, basically become as self-sufficient as possible. Now I know why. Hopefully, others can do the same, and we can all help in our communities. I stocked up on rice, lentils, pickles, tinned food, and loo rolls back in March because I saw what was happening around the world. I still have the stockpile and replenish it whenever I consume anything from it. I have around 6 months of food stocked. And I'm still stocking up. Everyone should always think ahead and plan. We also need better regulations and organization of the food supply and distribution. As a country, we definitely have transport issues and growing and harvesting issues. As Americans, we waste more food every day than it would take to feed most of the world for that day and maybe more. Just think about all the leftovers that get dumped every day. Fresh fruits and veggies that get tossed. Expiration dates pass on packaged meats. The farmers are letting produce rot, while we subsidize them. Does something seem rotten here? So, we have transport issues and growing and harvesting issues. In other words, there will be food shortages and rising prices. When the trucks stop rolling, it's time to panic. These are the realities of the supply chain. Sugar beets, rice, and corn all were hit very hard last year from excessively long freezing periods, where crops froze in the ground and could not be harvested, and later when there were excessive water and crops were not planted in time. Other crops have been hurt by excessive cold and wet weather in the last year too. Sometimes you just see a large price spike. Other times you see rationing, as it has been with some sugar and corn products this year. Also, flooding reigned the past 2 growing seasons in the U.S. Hardly any crops were able to be planted last year in the Midwest because of mud and standing water. The same thing is happening this spring. Add in how much food is now imported from other countries, and those ships are not coming into the ports. Add to that the fact that the FDA has decided not to issue any migrant worker visas. That means crops this year are going to sit there in the fields and rot unless Americans get out there and pick them. And yeah, some will, but will it be enough? You tell me, with all these things, and the shelter-in-place orders, do you really think the food supply is okay? I don't. Plus, the value of the dollar will decrease. And scarcity will inflate the price. The poor are really in trouble. There are no redundancies in the food processing industry, they have been eliminated in order to create the just-in-time delivery system. Due to lean manufacturing and just-in-time delivery, the food processing supply chain runs on the edge of failure when times are good. In reality, we have an almost failing delivery system. Just one little glitch, and the entire system falls apart. The pictures of empty shelves say it all. When food isn't making it to store shelves, it's a shortage of food, no matter the circumstances that lead to that result. Also, farmers are dumping milk and letting crops rot in the field. Have been hearing of cattle farmers possibly killing their herds and burying them under because of the situation of restaurants and schools being closed. This was the Atlantis Report. Please like, share, subscribe, leave me a comment. And please take some time to subscribe to my backup channels, I do upload videos there too. You'll find the links in the description box. You will also find a PayPal link if you want to make a donation. Thank you wholeheartedly to all those of you who have already donated. Stay safe and healthy, friends.